Hello and grüß Gott. This is part 3 of our turbo installation. This is a KO Racing turbo. You can watch parts 1 and 2 and see what we've done so far. And it's pretty much the same for LC Engineering, pretty close. So today we got this bung welded on, or weldment, and we got this TIG welded and we got it painted. So this has all been totally cleaned up and it's ready to go back on. And just to protect the surfaces here, we have some tape we put on so that it won't get damaged. So that's ready to go on, but we're not going to put that on quite yet. The next thing we're going to look at doing is installing the actual exhaust manifold that came from KO Racing. And so we decided to buy a new gasket from Toyota. It's part number 17173-75020. These actually are not very expensive. We got this from Olathe Toyota, and I think it was about 25 bucks. So pretty good, not a big deal. I think the retail is 35. And then for the EGR tube, we bought all new gaskets for it. And these are very hard part numbers to find. So it's part number 25628-75010. And this is the part that where the EGR connects to the throttle body. And then where it connects to the actual exhaust manifold is part number 25634-75010. So that goes to the exhaust manifold. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this gasket on to the engine. I've already cleaned it up really, really well where the old gasket came off. And we're going to set the new exhaust manifold onto it and start putting some nuts on. And that's as far as we're going to go at the moment, and we'll cut right back to that scene. So I'll be right back. One thing I forgot to mention is before we actually put on this exhaust manifold, we want to put on this flare fitting which feeds the oil up to the turbo. So unfortunately the pictures on all the websites don't really cover this exact model. So I'm going to use a 9/16" wrench because this is an American fitting, and I have a 22mm backing wrench. Right now I'm just sort of snugging this flare fitting, and it's going to route sort of around the back here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and snug it up real good, and then we will put on the exhaust manifold. All right, this manifold comes, without any studs or anything in it. So we think that these studs go in here, and these are the ones that don't have a shoulder on them. So we put them in and we put backing nuts to tighten them down, and we also use some medium strength Loctite. And when we put the gasket on here and then connect the EGR and use the old nuts to fasten it down, we think everything should be fine. So all that's good. I'm ready to sort of go ahead and install this. And I wanted to mention on the gasket, there's a little cutaway part here that goes towards the front of the engine. Up here in the front, it's a little cutaway. So what I'm going to do now is carefully flip this over and feed it down in here very, very carefully. Line it up and set it on there. And I will install these studs in a short while. And the reason I want to install them later is because I have a special tool to install them with, and it's easier if I have something holding this in place like an engine. So all I'm going to do for right now is just put these on here so they're just barely tight. And then we'll come back later and show you what we're going to do next. So we'll be right back. So I've put these nuts on, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start to not even snug down, just sort of bring this manifold in. And I can see I'm going to have to use some wrenches on some of them. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of start to snug it up. That's about all I'm going to do, because I'm not ready to torque them down until I check to make sure the bung for the EGR and everything lines up correctly. So I want to check that, and then we will start to torque it. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm ready to start torquing down the manifold bolts for the exhaust manifold. They get torqued to 49 Newton meters, but you don't do it all at once. You do it in gradual steps. So I'm ready to do that because I actually trial fitted the EGR tube on, and it fits exactly. So everything's fine there. So here's some of the tools you're probably going to need. This is a snap-on or blue point. This is actually a crow's foot ratchet wrench. Pretty cool. I am going to have to probably use this to get into one of these different nuts here. This is made by Stahlwelle in Germany, and you can get it on Amazon. And then, of course, my torque wrench, and then Nico USA 14 millimeter deep crow's foot, heavy duty crow's foot wrench. With all these tools here, we'll be able to get to each one of these nuts because they're kind of hard to get to, and tighten them down to 49 Newton meters. So we're going to do that, and then we'll come back. We've got all these torqued. I marked them. I torqued them in 3 different stages, 20, 40, and 49 Newton meters. Then after I got done, I went ahead and put inspector's lacquer on each one of them as I double checked my work. So now I'm going to attach the EGR. So I'll put those gaskets in here, as I had mentioned earlier. The ones, there's one that goes here that's a crush type gasket made for high temperature, and the other one on the other side is more like a fiber or paper type gasket. And then I'll do the hard to get to bolt on the inside here. And on each of those I'll use low strength Loctite, and I'm going to just snug them up real good. They do have a torque setting, but snugging them up real good is probably the perfect thing to do because they're really, really hard to get to. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to put studs in here with a stud tool. So I'll be right back. I've just finished installing the EGR tube. I had to use one of these 12 millimeter S wrenches in order to get in here. It's pretty difficult fit. Don't forget there's a bolt in the back that goes into the engine here to hold it. There's a bracket. Then on the other side, all new gaskets. Everything should be pretty pristine. So now I'm ready to go ahead and start installing these studs. So let me go get my special stud installation tool, and we'll get started with that here in a second. I'm ready to install the first stud. This is a private brands. They're made, it's an Australian company, but this is actually made in Taiwan. Stud installation tool. So what you do is you use it with a 17 millimeter ratchet to put the stud in, and then while you hold this, you loosen this, and it loosens a check ball and brings it back and allows you to remove this unencumbered and without damaging any threads. So I put a little bit of medium strength Loctite on it, and I'm going to thread it in here. We didn't get a torque spec for this, so we're going to do the best we can. So I'm actually just going to snug them in real nice. So I'm going to snug it in like this. And I'm just guessing at the torque here, probably about 25 Newton meters. So then I'm going to take a crescent wrench, hold this, loosen this, and this should just come right off, and I'll clean that excess off, and I'll do that for all 4. And then we're going to work on the drain pan. So back in a second. At this point, now we're ready to put on the oil pan. Now what we did was we trial fit it, and on the Forerunner, there's not that lower cross member you have to worry about. What you do is you have 2 people holding it, and you have one person guided up all the way to where the bell housing is, and then you can barely slip it past, and the pickup tube and everything will fit right in there. So that should be good to go. So we had taped this after we prepped it because we wanted it to be as nice as possible, so we get a good mating surface with this gasket material. So we have this Toyota part number 00295-103, and it's Toyota Seal Packing FIPG. So it's for the oil pan and camshaft housing, and it's for professional use. Well, I guess that leaves me out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bead all the way around here, trying to stay in the center. There's like a little center indent, and then I'm going to let it cure for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to stick it up there, and we're going to get all the hardware ready so we have it in our hands And we're going to start putting stuff in, and we're going to start to barely snug up all the nuts and bolts. Some are nuts, some are bolts. And once we get them all snugged up, I'm going to let it cure for about another 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'm going to torque them to 12.5 foot-pounds. I mean, sorry, 12.5 Newton meters, not foot-pounds, 12.5 Newton meters. And I'm going to use some probably low-strength Loctite on them so they won't come loose. We found a lot of them loose, we don't know why. So we'll do all that, and when we get done, well, I guess really that's the end of part 3, isn't it? So join us for part 4 soon, and until then, tschüss.